And welcome to another edition of South Texas Crossfire. This is Attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMV with the Lopez family. Special thanks to Don Humberto celebrating over 50 years of broadcasting. Our prayers are with him. He is in the hospital right now, and we hope for his speedy recovery. Also, my good friend Carlos Lopez, the broadcaster for KTMV, and you guessed it, the Ted Turner of broadcasting. And we'd like to thank all our sponsors and, of course, Steely Dan out there at Real Simple Productions for helping us on this and making it happen. With me today, I have the distinct pleasure of our continuing series on bringing out issues of the law that impact the whole community. And I have former prosecutor and great attorney who's also helping veterans, soon to be doing so. And we're going to talk about that also. Lisa Greenberg, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Hey, thank you for being here. I know you have a very busy schedule. And what we wanted to talk about was two very important issues. One of those being the veterans that are coming back from Iraq, and also your experiences working in the domestic violence prosecution of cases. And I think you've got a great background in criminal law and also a family background, husband in law enforcement and your dad, U.S. attorney, correct?
Yes.
So anyway, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Lisa Greenberg. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, and we moved to this area almost 2 years ago. And I'm a former prosecutor. Started out as a general prosecutor and then became the domestic violence prosecutor in El Paso County. And then now I flip sides and I'm doing mostly criminal defense work here in Corpus.
Okay, so you've been here in Corpus for a little while, but you've got an extensive background on that. Let's talk about your days at the district attorney's office out there. And which county is that in El Paso?
It's just El Paso County.
Okay, and you were a district attorney out there. What kind of cases were you handling?
Well, I started out as a general prosecutor, mostly for misdemeanors, and so we handled everything from DWIs to possession of controlled substances. And then I was chosen by the district attorney there to be the domestic violence prosecutor. So actually there was 4 of us in the domestic violence unit that solely prosecuted domestic violence cases.
Well, and the issue there being that on those they can be very trying on the victim, the family,
right,
the children, and also on the taxpayer and the prosecutor.
Absolutely.
Tell us the typical case that you encountered some problems or headaches with prosecuting the case, and what kind of pitfalls involved in prosecuting a domestic violence case.
Most of my domestic violence cases were misdemeanors. That is a situation where you live together, you have a child together, or you used to live together, whether you're married or not. And there's an assault situation. It doesn't have to be actual contact, but an assaultive situation. It becomes a domestic violence case. And in El Paso, the majority of the misdemeanors on any given day were assault family violence cases. And the problem we had in El Paso was when the case was originally filed, the victim would want to go forward. However, courts take a long time, and so the court process takes a long time. So by the time it would come to arraignment or another stage in the case, the victim would change their mind. And so we ran into a lot of difficulty there. Or the victim may or may not have been a citizen and had returned to Mexico at that time, so we didn't have a witness to the situation, and that was very difficult.
Well, and what do you do in that situation if the victim wants to recant, take back their story, file an affidavit of non-prosecution, as we say in the legal field, and then do you sometimes move forward with the case even if the victim recants?
Luckily, when I was a prosecutor, we had discretion, so I could do what I wanted to with the case. And in most cases, I had a non-prosecution statement, and that is where the victim comes in and says she doesn't want to, or he, because males can be victims too, doesn't want to go forward with the case. I would look at the facts of the case and I would listen to what the victim had to say, but if I believed that people could be helped with the case, sometimes I would go forward. And that doesn't necessarily mean a conviction on the defendant's record, but it could also be, I will send you to counseling for 20 hours, and if you complete the counseling, I'll dismiss the case. It depended on the circumstances of the case. A lot of times, there was a situation where a victim wouldn't want to go forward, but I felt that she would continually, or he would continually be assaulted if somebody didn't do something, so right, I would go forward anyhow. But it was difficult, and many times people would change their minds the day before trial. Or if I was in a 2-day trial, the defendant and the victim would make up after the first day of trial, and things would change on the second day. So it's like any relationship situation, things change very quickly.
Well, and then let's talk about the children impacted in this relationship. When the complaint comes in, the police have been called, they arrest the person, they're jailed. Now, part of the bond conditions can be don't have any contact with the spouse, who generally, in many cases, is female,
Right.
and who has custody of the children.
Right.
Can that person accused of domestic violence and innocent before proven guilty, we always forget that, but innocent before proven guilty, can they go near the house? How do they see their children? In your experience, when they were removed from there accused of domestic violence, were they denied visitation to their children?
Yes, most of the times they were, unless a protective order was not issued. But usually their bond conditions say they cannot have contact with the victim or the victim's family. Well, most times the victim's family is the defendant's family in any kind of marital or living together situation. So it does affect the children. And they're also affected because many times children are witnesses to the situation. So also if they're witnesses, then the defendant cannot contact the children in any way.
And during this time, the pending, of the prosecution, is the victim provided with services, counseling services, the children, or are they given some sort of guidance to where to go get counseling? And would that reinforce them staying the course and prosecuting and helping prosecute the case?
That's an interesting question. Some victims want the services that the district attorney's office can provide for them through the Violence Against Women's Act that set up the services for the victims. Sometimes they don't want anything to do with it. And sometimes some people feel that the services provided can give them an ulterior motive to go forward with the case, because if they decide not to prosecute, they can lose those services. So in many instances, these people need those services, but they also feel bound by those services that they're provided.
Right. So, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, as far as doing the prosecution, and when they don't show up, you show up for trial, you say you're ready to go to trial the following Monday, and then, no victim. Right. And have you had experience where the spouse, they're seeing each other anyway, even with the bond conditions and a court-ordered kind of deal, they're still seeing each other over 6 months before the case gets to trial or whatever length. I mean, have you encountered that?
I've had many situations like that where I would talk to the victim the day before the trial, and then she, most of the time it was a female, did not show up for trial, or she fled to Mexico the day before trial. Or I had instances where they made up the night before and she comes to court with hickeys all over her neck, and that doesn't look very good for a prosecutor whose victim is supposedly scared of the perpetrator, the defendant.
Well, and they're tough cases all around.
Right.
Now, as a criminal defense attorney turning the tables, that's why I brought you on. You have a very unique perspective where you've been on the side of the prosecution and now you're defending. It's kind of like you know both sides of it. When you represent somebody, you've been on both sides, so you know what to anticipate. Is that providing you with a good advantage when you represent clients, even clients who are accused of domestic violence or assault?
I think it is, because having the background as a prosecutor, I can read a case as a prosecutor would. I can look at the evidence and see, as a prosecutor, is this a good case for the prosecutor? What elements are lacking of the crime? What can they not prove? And then I also can, having been kind of specialized as a domestic violence prosecutor, when I get a domestic violence case, I know right offhand what's going to be admitted, what's not, what the prosecutor may or may not do, and how strong their case is. Well,
you know, the defense attorneys are taking notes out there right now. The other thing is, let's tailor this and turn it on. We've got a few minutes before we have to say goodbye for a break, but talking about veterans, you know, a lot of us support veterans and thank them for their service, but when they're coming back, because of the budgetary constraints, there's not a lot of programs out there. Many of these veterans are coming back and are being hard to adjust. They're having fights with their spouses. They're getting pulled over for DWI. They're turning to drugs. They've got a lot of things going on. I understand that you may be working with veterans here very quickly.
Right. I actually volunteered it's a newly formed veterans court. I did so because my husband is a veteran and my father is a veteran. And
Thank them for serving.
Thank you, I will. I noticed as a prosecutor, actually, originally, I could always tell when I got an assault family violence case, if it was a veteran, how soon they had come back from currently Iraq. There's a big adjustment period. You're gone in the Army, which El Paso is Fort Bliss, so it was mostly Army. They're gone for 18 months from their families. They live with a bunch of different soldiers in a different environment, and they come back with issues. And so they would always seem to be charged with the same crimes, and one of them was assault family violence. Some other ones were an unlawful carrying of a weapon, drug charges, DWIs came back, a lot of people that came back. So there definitely was a problem adjusting to life back home. So I first noticed it then, and then I heard that Nueces County was forming the Veterans Court, so I volunteered to help get it started. And so that is a newly formed court for those kind of issues, with veterans that come back with those kind of issues. Well,
and you know, we've got a minute before we go on break, but what's the underlying message here about trying to help veterans and veterans that are coming back? And we'll put up your number on the screen if we have veterans that are interested in contacting you and looking for help. But what's the message for them that when they're coming back, I mean, to readjust?
Well, there's definitely a readjustment process, and these are people that sometimes don't get the help they need, and the first way you can spot that they need help is they're charged with a crime. And so these veterans that come back, they may not be diagnosed with PTSD or a traumatic brain injury, but they might still have it. They might still have some readjustment to do. And so we try to get them the help they need instead of punishing them through the criminal justice system. We try to get them help and spot it through the criminal justice system.
What's the number that they can contact you at, or about domestic violence if they have questions or have been accused of a domestic violence assault?
It's 446-2476, and I'd be happy to help.
And that's 446-2476, and your email?
It's Lisa Gail, Lisagail, 76 @yahoo.com.
Well, thank you, Ms. Greenberg. I appreciate it. And hopefully you come back and we interview you again. We're going to take a brief break, but when we come back, we're going to have Mr. Stephen McMains. We're going to be talking about the federal criminal system when we come back.
Each year, millions of dollars are lost to healthcare fraud. The elderly and the poor are the most vulnerable. Every day, unscrupulous healthcare providers are submitting false claims to the government's Medicaid and Medicare programs. The state and federal government are offering rewards for information leading to the successful prosecution of these cases. For more information, contact the law offices of Joe Flores. With his experience in the medical profession and as a trial lawyer, Joe Flores can provide you more information on how to fight healthcare fraud. Law offices of Joe Flores, equal justice for all.
Attention Reglan users. Reglan, also known as metoclopramide, is a drug used to treat reflux and other stomach conditions. Reglan can be safe and effective for many, but it has also been linked to tardive dyskinesia, a severe neurological disorder. Symptoms can include abnormal movement of the tongue, face, arms, legs, and body, or abnormal muscular contractions. If you or someone you love has taken Reglan for 3 months or longer and suffered any of these symptoms, call attorney at law Joe Flores, 361-887-8670.
Each year, millions of Americans are severely injured or killed on our highways in trucking accidents needlessly. Motorists near the border are especially vulnerable. The law offices of Joe Flores can help provide you with information if you or a loved one has suffered a serious injury as a result of a negligent truck driver. Joe Flores is backed by extensive experience as a trial lawyer and a medical professional. Joe Flores can provide you with a prompt and accurate case evaluation. Contact us toll-free today, 888-259-5721 for a free consultation. The law offices of Joe Flores, equal justice for all.